everyone. So 3 years ago, I began arguing with boys, debating boys, endless conversations with boys. Does that seem odd to you? Because we feel like boys don't talk. And I'm a woman, and I'm also a mother, which I did not hide when I was talking to boys, but we did get them to talk. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you some of the things that I found were the most surprising and the most important, and particularly related to the fields that so many people in this room are involved with social networking, with technology, and also then in the Q&A, give you an opportunity to be able to speak to some of the young men that I worked with. So let me begin by giving you a conversation that occurred between a group of boys and myself. When I first was starting out, figuring out what I wanted to write about with Masterminds and Wingmen. So we're sitting in a group, about 12 boys. They're in 11th and 12th grade. Donuts, of course, are on the table. Well, they're not there. They're gone. I can't even see them eat it. They eat them so fast. And the topic just sort of goes to girls and what they are frustrated about. And then I start asking them about the differences that some of them have who have sisters and how their parents treat them. And here's a conversation that occurred between me and the boys. So you let your parents bring a girl into your room to, quote, watch a movie? 10 pairs of shoulders shrug. Yeah, pretty much. Do they say anything to you about it? Do they say anything to you when you are walking up into your bedroom with this girl? They look at me, they say, one says, well, not really, but I mean, they say things like, try to think with your other head, the bigger one. My dad will text me things when I'm walking up into my bedroom that says things like, don't be stupid. I said, did your mother know that your father is texting you this? He's like, no, not at all. When I'm walking out the door, without fail, my mom will say to me, don't bring me back any grandbabies. So that is it. This is my response. That is it. That is the advice that you get from adults. And they say, yeah, pretty much. So if you were having a problem with a girl or with this person that you were having an intimate relationship with, would you talk to an adult? No. Well, why not? Like, is there any circumstances upon which you would talk to an adult? No. Why? Because if I do, it's going to make the situation worse. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to boys. Because what I believe is that even with some of our best intentions, that we give boys often advice that sounds like a soundbite that they will never actually believe will work. And they think that if we talk to them, that it in fact is going to make their lives worse. And there is a look that comes across an adolescent male's face when you have given him bad advice or a soundbite, and if you have any degree of self-reflection and honesty, you will feel it. You'll feel this feeling of like, that he didn't buy it. And it really is where he blinks, and it's like a little slower. He sort of looks at you, his eyes sort of go up and down. And there's this feeling or this expression of resignation on his face that he has tried to talk to an adult, and in like the one time they'd ever tried, and this is just an example of that he should never ever do it again. So I have worked with kids for 18 years, with both boys and girls, between the ages of 4th grade through 12th grade. And what I really wanted to do and what I recognized is that the advice that I was giving boys and young men was not good enough. It was not what they deserved. And it was happening in moments like realizing the advice or the sound bites that adults were giving kids. And was I also doing that as well? Let me give you another example that might seem funny, but within it is lots of complexities. I was working with a group of, again, of high school boys. And we were talking about bullying, and you know, sort of the conversation wound down, and they said, one of them said, but Ms. Wiseman, that's super, super helpful. Like, yes, thank you, who's trying to be polite. And he said, okay, but what I really, really need help with is I need to know how long I have to wait to be able to try and hook up with a girl that I like, that my buddy used to hook up with. What's the statute of limitations here? And I said, well, that's an excellent question. Let's discuss it. Now, the boys had this very, very vibrant debate about it. This was actually an extraordinarily important issue amongst boys. But the thing that happened afterwards is as the boys were walking out, one of them said to me, "Can I talk to you for a second?" Now, when somebody says that, it's never the case. They want to talk to you for a long time. And so this young man turns to me and he says, "That kid has been doing this to me since we were in 9th grade. He knows that I'm in love with this girl, and yet he betrays me and I hate it. I actually want to punch him in the face." So to sit in that room and to have him laugh like that, I seriously, was like really hard. It was really hard. What did I need to say to him that would be credible? Another thing, when you're in 7th and 8th grade, your friends know the most about what you are embarrassed about and what they can ridicule you about. They know what that is. So for 7th and 8th grade boys, body image issues are extraordinarily important. And so one of the things that boys get teased about if they have this, are called moobs, man boobs. So when you're in 7th grade and you're 12 years old and you're feeling really self-conscious about your body, and your friends know what to tease you about, and if you say anything about it, that you are going to be teased even more. And what if, for example, you have your shirt off and one of your really good friends, like in your tight circle of friends, gets another kid who's also in your tight circle of friends to take a picture of you with your shirt off and then forward it to everybody that you know, including the girl that you have a huge crush on? How do these issues impact boys as they get older, and how can we, as adults, give them the advice that they need? That was my charge, because I truly had to realize that I was getting too much of that look on boys' faces, that I wasn't giving them what they deserved. So what I did, starting about 3 years ago, was I stopped talking so much and put up and I can do this myself. Let's see. So what we did was we created a book for the boys themselves. It is called The Guide, Managing Douchebags, Recruiting Wingmen, and Attracting Who You Want. That is awesome. Would you like, you can read it yourself? Oh, wow. So here's the deal. This book, unlike Masterminds and Wingmen, which some of you have, and thank you very much for buying, is really for the boys. Now, adults can read it, but it is for the boys. It is also only an ebook. We're not putting it out as a regular book. What I wanted was for the boys to have something in their pocket that when they had somebody teasing them about moobs, or when somebody came to them and said that your really good friend, your good friend, just hooked up with the girl that you, like your heart is breaking, that they would have something in their pocket that they can then take out privately and look and see, oh my God, like my friend just betrayed me. What do I do? Go to page 75, right? My friend is relentlessly teasing me. What do I do? Go to page 124. So that they could do this privately. And the reason, of course, is because it is so difficult for boys to want to ask for help. Not just because they think that that their lives will be worse if we get involved. It is also because they are deeply ingrained to not want to ask for help, because if they do, there is something wrong with them. Now, there is nothing wrong with young people wanting to solve problems on their own in their online life or their real life, or the fluidity between the two. There is nothing wrong with that. We want children to be able to be competent. We want them to be socially competent. The only way to do that is to go through the mess of social dynamics, and we are messy. Conflict is inevitable. Abuse of power is inevitable. So to be the goal for us, and for many of you, I think in what we do in any kind of capacity that you're here today, is to be able to teach young people to be socially competent in a very complex world. And those are not soft issues. Those are actually the most difficult and hard issues that adults and people ever face. How do you speak truth to power? How, when somebody is abusing power, how do you speak so that somebody takes you seriously, or that you are able to not be silenced yourself? How do we do that? And it doesn't matter if it's on a football team. It doesn't matter how old you are, or if you're a professional football player. It doesn't matter if you're a kid on a team. It doesn't matter if you are playing a video game. It doesn't matter if you are texting. It is how you confront abuse of power. So this is my attempt to be able to reach boys with no barriers to entry to be able to reach them and say, this has been done for you. But it has not just been done by me, right? Because as I said, woman, old, mom, right? The only way I was going to be able to do this successfully, and the only way that I felt that I had the right to do this, was to bring young men into the fold. And so I went around the country and said, I don't want to do interviews. That's not what I'm doing here. What I want is for young men to help me every step of the way to vet every single page and tell me, what is it that I'm doing wrong? Is my advice wrong? My experience, especially in social networking and video gaming, has dramatically changed in the last 2 years. And in large part because of what the boys were telling me. I have to admit when my information is antiquated. I have to admit when my thinking has to change. And I believe strongly that when young people see that from authority figures, that is transformational. That when we say we don't know, that we don't know exactly every way to manage the social networking stuff, we do not know. But what we do know are two things. People's dignity is not negotiable. Dignity means to be worthy. You have to have the right to have your voice heard. So dignity is not negotiable for you or for other people, and it is absolutely fundamentally tied to our social contract of how we manage with each other. It is also the case, as I said, that conflict is inevitable and abuse of power is inevitable. So our goal is to be able to teach you to be socially competent with a bedrock understanding of dignity. And we are going to admit as adults when we are inconsistent in the mistakes that we make, and we are also going to admit that sometimes we act very hypocritically. And maybe not just maybe I'm trying my best, right? As the adult in your life, I'm trying my best, but I'm going to acknowledge two things. I'm going to acknowledge that there are adults in life who say one thing and do another. I'm going to acknowledge that, and some of those people are putting rules down on you and demanding that you follow rules that they are not willing to follow themselves. The second thing that I'm going to acknowledge is that you might be seeing that in your own life, in your own day-to-day lives. But as an adult who cares about you, I'm going to admit the messiness of life, and I'm going to admit that sometimes adults do not act and treat you and other people in the way that we deserve. Because one of the things that we have done in any kind of policy about bullying and cyberbullying, anything like that, is really clear. There's one place where we lost our credibility. One is, it is where we said, go report to an adult. We said that all over the place. Now, on the face of it, it's a great thing to say. Makes sense. A couple of things about that. Kids see every day adults who do not report. They see us on the athletic fields. They see us with technology where we do not report. The other thing that we do is we don't give them a context for asking for help. So what we do is we say, just ask for help. Well, if young people believe they want self-agency, which they want, as Dana talked about yesterday, they want self-agency, they deserve self-agency. That if they want that by asking for help, they do feel like that it gets taken away. And in large part, there is some legitimacy about the way bullying and cyberbullying policies have happened, that once you say those words, sometimes the adults swoop in and do take away your self-agency. So that makes the kid not want to come forward and not want to work with you. The other part is, especially for boys, is that what we do not do is teach them that asking for help is a skill. It is a capacity. It is not being weak and less than. When we can change that of asking for help is a capacity and being able to strategically think through who is that person who can help us, that changes the way they look at themselves and what makes their lives better. For those of you who work in video gaming, it is very easy to tie this, to looking for help in a video game. Who's your team? Who do you need? What strategies, what skills, what weapons do they have? What do you need? What armor, what face, what helmet? All of those things actually relate to asking for help. And it is a way for us, even in social networking and video gaming, to tie their real life with their online life. Because of course, this is fluid. Now, I want to talk a little bit, I had to choose some of the things that I was really like, what am I going to talk to people about? So here's what I just want to do a slice, and then of course we're going to do this Q&A. If you are a 7th and 8th grade boy, or even a 6th grade boy, and you are looking at your female peers, you do not feel that you're the one with the privilege. Now, we might think that boys have gender privilege, or in general, we often talk about it. And there is a problem, certainly, in the way that gender is often expressed, masculinity is expressed, in technology, with video gaming, and with the ways in which it can be really homophobic, 100%, and very against women and girls. Absolutely true. But from the point of view of a boy, when you are in 7th grade or 8th grade and you are looking at your female peers, and they are pretty much through puberty, and you have like little tiny legs with like no hair on them, right? That you are not looking at yourself like, oh, I'm the one with power here. I'm the one with control. You don't feel that at all. You often feel the opposite. Most boys feel that way. So when we talk to boys about issues that are really problematic and can be very hurtful to both boys and girls, and the intersection of gender and of sexual assault and sexual harassment and just degradation and ridicule that we see amongst boys and girls using technology, it's actually really important to take it a step back and to see it from their point of view when they are in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. So if we have that as a thing in our heads of what they look like, now I want to walk you through what actually Justin Patchen, who spoke to you yesterday, is so good about, which is breaking down what sexting looks like. And once in a while, Justin and I meet. We had a moment like this yesterday where we meet at a conference, and I'm thinking about something, and he's thinking about something. I swear, yesterday we talked about something about video games, and he knew exactly what I was talking about, and I barely said a sentence. This happened to both of us around the issue of sexting. So here's the way that I break down sexting. There are different kinds of it. And I want you to think about that when we think about technology as something that creates a lot of anxiety for adults and for parents, and then we throw in that what else makes adults and parents extremely anxious for the most part is the sexual development of their children, right? So you've got on one hand technology, which makes a lot of people anxious. Then you've got kids and sexuality on the other. That makes for very anxious thinking and reactivity, and it's very difficult to be able to think through a problem in any way logically, all right? So that's what I think is one of the things that's our biggest challenge when we're thinking about technology and how kids are using it to flirt, or how they're using it, as Dana said, about privacy and relationships, and about how they also sometimes run off the rails and make really poor choices, or even that make themselves vulnerable to being ridiculed by people, or even to be able to exploit somebody with less power. So here's how I define it. Because what you see in the media is usually a generically pretty girl who took a picture of herself topless, with the selfies or the duck lips or whatever, and she sends it, and then everybody thinks she's a fool, right? It's like, why would you possibly think this was a good idea? You must be really just have no self-esteem and be desperate. I mean, this is the kinds of things that people think. Here's how I break it down. That's what makes it on the news. Here's what I think are different ways of sexting. One is consensual flirting, like honest to goodness consensual flirting. It's just it makes us extremely uncomfortable because we've got kids who are expressing themselves sexually visually, right? And we're not used to that, but they've grown up online, so that's what they're doing. It makes perfect sense. Number two is that they are showing that it's a way to express love. It's a way to say, you love me so much, you mean so much to me, and I really want this picture of you. Right? So then it's an expression of love, communication of love. Now, of course, that can be totally exploited later when the relationship goes bad, and then somebody gets really angry, and so you have this picture of somebody, and then you forward it, right? The other then gets into where girls who are desperate for affirmation, and the closest way they can get affirmation, because the culture is giving them so many powerful messages that the best way to get boys' attention and to be valued is to be sexual. And the more hypersexual you are, the more value you are and the more special you feel. So sometimes girls will send unsolicited pictures of themselves to boys to be able to get this kind of attention, to get noticed. The other way that happens is something that really where it's used badly is blackmail, where there are boys who will use or ask for pictures or somehow get them because they're forwarded, and then sometimes they will reach out, they will say to the girl, if you don't give me more, or if you don't do X, I'm going to show this around. Now that's the minority of experiences that I have with boys and girls, but it definitely not only happens, but when it does, it makes a huge impact on the rest of the community because all the kids know. Now, we have an impression of girls who are the ones that are sexting, and that they're the only ones that are sexting. That is incorrect. It is that boys, when they sext, are usually taking pictures. If they're going to do this, there's two kinds. One is like the Facebook thing where it's like their shirt's off, right? Okay, that's not really a problem for most people. People don't freak out on that. But the other kind of thing that boys like to take pictures of because they think it's funny at the first level is they like to take pictures of their genitals. So imagine you are a guy, you have a friend that's a guy, you know his phone's in his backpack, you know his password, he goes to the bathroom or leaves his backpack on the floor, you think it would be really funny, or somebody else says to you, you know it would be really funny, so you do it. So you take the phone out, you unlock the phone, you take a picture of your genitals, you go somehow do it real fast, put it back into the phone, or you send it to people, and all of a sudden it looks like there's a picture of this other kid's genitals being sent all over the school, right? Now, it's much harder to be able to identify the person behind the picture in that situation, right? So you can imagine that when a girl gets a picture of this and gets really upset and freaks out and sends it to the administrator, he's going to assume, or she's going to assume, unless they're really smart, that the picture that they're looking at is from the person's phone. It could be this kid's friend. But we don't know about that because that doesn't become public. What becomes public are these issues for the girls. So we have a false sense of what's going on with the boys and with the girls because the boys are doing this. All right, so here's what I want you to think about in preparation for going into the Q&A. This is not about looking at the boys as, oh my gosh, they're terrible, they do these crazy things, they're so immature. They're not. Boys have complex relationships. They are capable of doing things that seem ridiculous or seem hurtful / ridiculous, like what I just described. But they are complex. They don't just have fights and then it's over. The kid who received that picture, who finds out that somebody took a picture of somebody else's genitals and now it's on his phone, boys don't just fight and it's over. They often pretend that things are funny and they hate it and they don't know what to do. So what we've got are boys who feel silent about knowing how to change things in their life that they don't like. And so one of the things that I'm asking you to think about in preparation for talking to the young men and to me is that I'm asking you all to think about how we change the language that we talk about boys and that we talk to boys, and that we don't look at them as these simple people that are just driven to eat nachos, play video games, and chase girls. That there is a complex life there, and that they are they very much want to be able to change the things that they don't like, to be able to express passion in life for the things that they love, that they care about, and that they want changed. And that they are living in a world that is actually doing a pretty good job of not letting them do that. And so we are here to be able, in whatever capacity, to be able to give boys the kind of life that they deserve. Thanks very much.